Let's get right into it. Number 5, the Chinese Mandate of Heaven was history's most convenient political scam. Ancient Chinese rulers figured out the perfect way to stay in power forever. They claimed the gods personally handpicked them to rule. This wasn't just any ordinary divine blessing. The Mandate of Heaven was supposedly a cosmic contract between the ruler and the universe itself. According to this myth, heaven would only grant power to virtuous leaders who deserved it. The emperor wasn't just some guy with a crown, he was literally heaven's chosen representative on earth. But here's where it gets sneaky. These rulers created a foolproof system that could explain away any problem. When things were going well, obviously heaven approved of their leadership. Crops were growing, the economy was booming, enemies were defeated, all proof that the gods were happy with their choice. But when disaster struck, when famines hit, when rebellions broke out, the rulers had a backup plan. They'd claim they were still legitimate, but heaven was just testing them. Or maybe some cosmic imbalance needed to be corrected through more prayers and sacrifices. The real genius was what happened when dynasties actually fell. Instead of admitting the whole system was made up, the new rulers would say the previous emperor had lost heaven's favor. The mandate had simply transferred to them. It was like a divine game of musical chairs where the music never actually stopped. The new guy in charge would point to his victory as proof that heaven wanted him there all along. Meanwhile, the old ruler obviously became corrupt and unworthy, which explained why he lost power. Chinese historians wrote entire books explaining how each dynasty rise and fall perfectly matched this heavenly plan. They'd retroactively find signs and omens that supposedly predicted every political change. A comet appeared before the rebellion. That was heaven warning about the transfer of power. An earthquake happened during the final battle. Obviously, the universe was celebrating the new righteous leader. This wasn't religious belief, it was political marketing designed to make every power grab look like divine will. The beauty of this system was its flexibility. Any ruler could claim the mandate, and any disaster could be explained away. It gave Chinese emperors unlimited authority while providing a convenient excuse for why bad things happened. The people couldn't question their leader's decisions because arguing with the emperor meant arguing with heaven itself. This myth lasted for thousands of years because it solved every political problem. New rulers got instant legitimacy, old rulers got a face-saving explanation for their defeat, and the common people got a simple story that made sense of chaotic political changes. If you're enjoying these political lies disguised as ancient wisdom, make sure to subscribe because we're just getting started with history's greatest propaganda campaigns. Number 4, the Trojan War as told by Homer was probably the ancient world's biggest fish story. Everyone knows about the legendary 10-year siege, the heroic warriors, the beautiful Helen whose face launched 1,000 ships. But historians today think the whole epic was either massively exaggerated or completely made up. Homer's version wasn't history, it was ancient Greek propaganda designed to make them look incredible. The Greeks needed a unifying story that showed them as the greatest civilization on Earth. What better way than creating an epic tale where Greek heroes spend a decade proving their superiority over their enemies? The story had everything: brave warriors like Achilles who were practically invincible, clever strategists like Odysseus who could outwit anyone, divine intervention from Greek gods who clearly favored the Greek side, and most importantly, total victory over the Trojans who dared to challenge Greek honor. But here's what's suspicious about Homer's account. Archaeological evidence shows that Troy was indeed a real city and it was destroyed by fire. But the elaborate siege, the massive Greek army, the legendary heroes fighting one-on-one duels, that's where history gets fuzzy and mythology takes over. Homer was writing hundreds of years after these events supposedly happened. He wasn't a war correspondent. He was a storyteller crafting entertainment that reinforced Greek cultural values. The timing of when these poems became popular is telling. They spread during a period when Greek city-states were competing with each other and facing threats from foreign powers. What better way to inspire unity than reminding everyone about the time all Greeks worked together to crush their enemies? The Trojan War became a template for how Greeks should behave. Men should be warriors willing to fight for honor. Leaders should be both strong and clever. Greek culture should dominate over foreign civilizations. Even the famous Trojan horse was probably based on actual siege equipment that got turned into a legendary tale of Greek cunning. Ancient armies used battering rams covered in wet animal hides to protect against fire arrows. Some clever storyteller likely transformed this boring military technique into an epic tale of deception. Instead of saying Greeks used standard siege tactics, the myth made it sound like they invented the most brilliant military trick in history. The story served multiple political purposes. It justified Greek expansion by showing they had always been destined to conquer other lands. It encouraged military service by glorifying warfare and heroic death. It reinforced gender roles by making Helen the cause of the entire conflict. And it established Greeks as naturally superior to other cultures through their combination of strength, intelligence, and divine favor. Homer's epics became the foundation of Greek education. Every Greek child learned these stories, absorbing lessons about courage, honor, and cultural superiority. The Trojan War wasn't just entertainment, it was a massive propaganda project that shaped how Greeks saw themselves and their place in the world for centuries. Number 3, Alexander the Great's divine birth was ancient Macedonia's ultimate power move. Picture this. You're a Macedonian king trying to convince your people that conquering the entire known world is a good idea. Your solution? Claim your son isn't just any ordinary prince. He's literally the child of Zeus, king of the gods. That's exactly what happened with Alexander's origin story, and it worked like a charm. The official version goes like this. Alexander's mother, Olympias, had a divine encounter with Zeus himself. Some stories claim she was visited by the god in the form of a serpent. Others say Zeus appeared as a thunderbolt. Either way, the message was clear. Alexander wasn't just Philip II's son. He was a demigod with a divine mission to rule the world. This wasn't some random religious belief that developed over time. It was calculated political theater designed to justify the most ambitious military campaign in ancient history. Think about what Alexander was attempting. He wanted to march his army across continents, conquering civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. His soldiers needed to believe they weren't just invading foreign lands for wealth and glory. They were participating in a cosmic plan orchestrated by the gods themselves. When you're asking men to march thousands of miles from home and risk death in desert battles, divine endorsement becomes pretty useful motivation. The genius was how this myth solved multiple political problems at once. It gave Alexander authority over older, more established civilizations. When he conquered Egypt, he could claim he was fulfilling divine destiny rather than just being another foreign invader. It justified his increasingly autocratic behavior as he accumulated more power. If you're half god, normal human rules don't really apply to you. And it explained his incredible military success in terms his followers could understand. Alexander himself definitely believed in his own propaganda. He regularly visited oracles and temples, seeking confirmation of his divine status. He demanded that conquered peoples worship him as a god, not just respect him as a king. He even planned to have temples built in his honor throughout his empire. This wasn't just political theater anymore. Alexander had drunk his own mythological Kool-Aid, but here's what's really telling. The divine birth story became more elaborate and widespread after Alexander's conquests proved successful. Early accounts of his childhood barely mention any supernatural elements, but as his reputation grew, so did the miraculous details of his origin. It's like watching a resume get more impressive with each job application. The myth expanded to match his achievements, not the other way around. If you're starting to see how ancient propaganda still influences us today, hit that subscribe button because we're about to reveal even more political lies disguised as legendary history. Number 2, ancient Egyptian pharaohs pulled off history's longest-running god complex. For over 3,000 years, Egyptian rulers convinced their people they weren't just kings. They were literally living gods walking among mortals. This wasn't religious devotion, it was the most sophisticated political control system ever invented. The pharaoh wasn't just some guy who happened to be born into the right family. He was the earthly incarnation of Horus, the falcon-headed god. When he died, he became Osiris, ruler of the underworld. This divine identity meant questioning the pharaoh's decisions wasn't just political dissent. It was cosmic blasphemy, punishable by the gods themselves. Imagine trying to organize a rebellion against someone your entire culture believes controls the flooding of the Nile River. Egyptian priests and scribes spent centuries crafting elaborate ceremonies and monuments to reinforce this divine illusion. Every temple, every statue, every hieroglyphic inscription hammered home the same message. The pharaoh was chosen by the gods to maintain cosmic order. Without his divine presence, chaos would consume Egypt. The sun might stop rising, the Nile might stop flooding, and civilization itself might collapse. This wasn't just about individual ego. The god-king myth solved practical problems of governing a massive, diverse empire. Egypt stretched for hundreds of miles along the Nile, encompassing different ethnic groups, languages, and local traditions. How do you maintain control over such a vast territory without modern communication or transportation? You convince everyone that defying central authority means defying the universe itself. The system was self-reinforcing. When Egypt prospered, obviously the god-king was maintaining cosmic balance. When disaster struck, the pharaoh could claim he was battling cosmic forces of chaos on behalf of his people. Either way, the solution was always more devotion to the divine ruler. Bad harvest? The pharaoh needs more elaborate temples to appease the gods. Foreign invasion? The people must have strayed from proper worship of their divine protector. Number 1, Rome's foundation myth was ancient Italy's greatest marketing campaign. The story of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a wolf who founded the Eternal City, sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. That's because it basically was. Roman politicians and historians crafted this elaborate origin story to give their expanding empire the prestigious backstory it desperately needed. Here's what really happened. Rome started as a collection of small Italian villages that gradually merged into a larger settlement. Nothing particularly glamorous about it. Just practical people figuring out that cooperation led to better trade, defense, and resource sharing. But as Rome grew into a major power, this humble beginning became embarrassing. How could the rulers of the Mediterranean world admit they came from a bunch of farmers who got together for mutual convenience? The solution was mythological makeover. Roman writers created an epic foundation story that connected Rome to the legendary Trojan War. According to their version, the Trojan hero Aeneas escaped the destruction of Troy and eventually reached Italy, where his descendants would found Rome. This gave Romans a heroic lineage that rivaled anything the Greeks could claim. But they didn't stop there. The Romulus and Remus story added even more divine legitimacy. The twins were supposedly descendants of Aeneas and children of Mars, the god of war. When their evil uncle tried to kill them as babies, they were miraculously saved and raised by a she-wolf. Romulus eventually killed Remus in a dispute over where to build their city, then founded Rome on the spot where he had been raised. The message was clear. Rome was destined for greatness from its very beginning. This myth served multiple political purposes. It explained why Romans were naturally superior warriors by claiming descent from Mars. It justified Roman expansion by suggesting the city was divinely ordained to rule other peoples. It even explained Roman brutality by pointing to Romulus killing his own brother as proof that Rome's greatness required ruthless determination. The timing of when these stories became popular is revealing. They spread during Rome's expansion across the Mediterranean, when Romans needed to convince both themselves and their subjects that their empire represented cosmic destiny rather than simple military conquest. Every Roman citizen learned these stories, absorbing lessons about their inherent superiority and divine right to rule the world. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.